This one, right? Okay, so hello from my side also, and welcome to this presentation. I don't know, can you hear me? Yeah. I'd like to present you a project which is called Vistom, which I've been developing in collaboration with different universities, which Vistom stands for Virtual Studios, Tools and Methods. And now what is it about? It's about creating an interactive virtual reality software where users can construct using virtually simulated machines which are based on real-life construction work. And through that we want to educate people on construction processes and methods and give them the ability to design by themselves based on real-life work, so that if someone wants to make a chair by themselves or table or any sorts of object, he could use this environment to design it by himself and then also learn how it would be done in real life afterwards. At the moment now, when you design an object through with a 3D modeling software such as Rhino or Blender, it takes quite an amount of time to get to know the software, to be able to use all the functions. So you have to spend quite a lot of time learning the softwares and getting to know them. And then once you have a model and you can communicate that model with other people, you're still away from the workshop and the actual construction process. And by simulating that in VR, you would have kind of a universal construction languages between analog and the digital world. So virtual reality as a work environment, we have heard it before. It's very intuitive, easy for a design perspective. You can visualize stuff. You can also see the color, shapes. You can stand in front of an object. But I think there's much more behind it in terms of that you can replace an interface through an interactive object. So, for example, if I would have a saw and I would cut an object, I could, if I don't have any knowledge before, I could experiment with that and I would have a direct feedback of what's actually happening with me interacting with the interface. And you would, while doing that, you would realize all the mistakes or weak points in your construction straight away by doing it. So if I want to build a chair, how do I get from my 6 meter long profile to my end product in the end? You would see, if something is attached flush, you would have where your problems are, how do I screw two things together, where do I have enough material to screw in or to weld, etc. You could realize that already by your design and your production basically in one environment. Now this environment is accessible in multiplayer mode up to 4 people, and through that we want to increase transparency and interdisciplinarity between different professions. So for example, if you want to make a project, you could have someone who's specialized in wood constructions, a metal worker and a designer and an engineer could share the same room from different geographical locations and discuss about the object being right in front of them with basically pointing at the problem, and everybody can stare around and look at it and interactively see it. This is actually, let me see, a video. Yeah. So you could have 2 people, also up to 4 people who can do that, teach each other, but also use your design, like use it in the whole process of a design of a project, and then making a first draft, then redesigning it, coming back together, or in a bigger project, just use this virtual room as your communication room with your object always being in front of you. Now with being in a virtual environment, you can basically do whatever you want, and what we found is that a lot of times people want to spawn infinite object. It's quite fun. You can just press a button and you got a 6 meter long profile there, and you kind of lose touch to reality of like, okay, we're now making this software which is resources friendly, and people can don't need to use the tools, but then they would maybe learn the wrong thing in terms of, I use this software or this application so much that I don't really have a lot of waste, and then in the end we don't have unlimited resources on this planet. So this is where gamification can come in and make us stay in touch with reality, as we heard before, to stay sustainable, teach people to use the right products in a sustainable way. Now, I've talked a lot about being able to use the advantages of the analog world in terms of building your construction and making the movements and actually building something. But then if you have a bigger project and you have a lot of repetitive tasks in front of you, it would be kind of stupid then to if I have to make a balustrade with 100 piles, I would have to cut 100 pieces in a virtual room with nothing, just doing the movement of doing that. So of course implemented the advantages of the digital side, and we implement a function that you can multiply an object, but only by a maximum factor of 10. So if you want to make 100 posts, you would still have to make 10 and see if your design then is actually, how much effort is needed for that. Because in our design software, if you want to make 1,000 holes, you make one hole and multiply it by 1,000, and there you go. And then the person who has to do it in the end in the workshop is kind of far from that. So we want to bring the actual effort for your construction, which is needed for your construction, already into the draft process. And of course also to group objects, to undo, redo, and to save and load your work. Now, who can benefit from a software like this is basically anyone who wants to make a construction and experience what it takes to make a construction. I used to be a metal worker when I did my apprenticeship, and one main reason for it was I want to see what I have done, and it was always a great thing at the end of the day to see what you have actually built. And so anyone who wants to make a construction or realize what it takes to make a construction and make things themselves, they can do that. So the whole DIY community, by tutorials on YouTube, which look up a lot of things and learn a lot of things through YouTube, could also use this virtual space as a tutorial space in multiplayer. You can record people on what they're doing, their movements, and make tutorials which are which are completely virtual. And then from a more industrial perspective on companies, if you would have a serial product which you want to optimize, you could simulate that process without using any resources or without using that much time, which it then actually would take in real life. And for companies, they could also take it a step further in terms of taking the machines which are in the software and then lay them out in the same way which they have it in the real workshop and optimize their process in a lean manner. So how much transportation does my 6-meter profile, when it comes into the workshop, do in terms of, all right, it goes to the saw, it goes to the drill, it goes to a laser cutter, and then it has to go to the other side of the workshop and optimize their construction process. Now, this is a student collaboration project so far, but we are looking for further partners, and I would like to use this opportunity here to ask out if anyone would be interested in collaborating. We would be more than happy, and I would be at the end of my presentation and be happy to answer some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any question? No? Maybe I have one for you. So it's really cool, the gamification aspect, and I just was wondering, in terms of, as we're talking about serious gaming, in that sense, in terms of prevention, might be also interesting to get information about how to use, for example, with the saw or the hammer. Maybe there are some hints that should be provided to the newbie.
Yes.
Is it something which is already part of it, or do you plan to do? Or?
Yeah, at the moment there is, when you would do something which could harm you in real life, you would then get a signal in the virtual room of that would be harmful and not the right way to do. But we are still in the development, but that is definitely an aspect which we are aware of. Yeah.
Thank you. No other question? So I propose you to move to the next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.